Hey, it's Straw Hat Sam here. I'm going to walk through all the steps necessary to disassemble the Blackmagic Pocket 4K to be used in the Pigeon or the Puffin, or if you're just using the naked Blackmagic 4K cage for whatever reason. Now, a big disclaimer and caveat, if you're doing this, the responsibility is all yours. I have done this many times and I think my directions are good. But even if you're following these steps to a T and you screw something up, or if my directions led you astray, I'm not responsible for that. And in addition, when you buy my products, the Blackmagic cage especially, the frame, that is a whole thing. If something bad happens and you fry your camera, that responsibility is yours, not mine. But it's definitely worth the effort and the risk. Laid out before you are all the tools you'll need to take apart your Blackmagic Pocket 4K. The only thing missing here is the heat gun, which is required for removing the LCD screen. And I like to use these little poached egg cups to organize the screws as I take them out, so I remember which screws go where. Okay, the first thing we got to do is remove 6 of these body screws. So you could see I peeled this back pretty easily with my fingernail, but there's a rubber grip here. You can use a propeller, like a stiff propeller, to dig that in there and get some leverage. And be sure not to tear it right along here. That's possible to do, so be careful, because you do want to keep it as in pristine condition as possible. And I'm using the T6 Torx driver right now for these outer body screws, and they may or may not fall out. If they don't fall out, that's okay, and just leave them be. And let's do the next one. There's another screw on this side of the rubber pad. Okay, that one fell out, so I'm going to use my blue for my body screws. B is for body. Move your body, baby, move your body. Okay, next is, there are screws hidden under here and here. To get these covers off, use a utility blade knife, and preferably one that has a broken tip, because you want a more stout tip that won't break. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm pressing in on the bottom side with the X-Acto knife or the utility knife, and then pushing upward using it like leverage, and then pushing it upward again. Take this and put it somewhere clean and safe, like the bezel of your computer monitor. Once again, repeat the same process, but this time it's on the top of it, and then this one's harder to get out, so you got to really push that utility blade down in there, make sure it's in there, and then you can pry it upward and then work its way back. It's easier for me because I've done this like twice to this camera. It's just got this paperback adhesive. Underneath the top cover is this light diffuser, and you can once again use your utility knife, push it into the top, and then bend it down kind of outward, so you're using leverage to just pull that thing out. Okay? And now that these screw holes are exposed, the first one is to the right of the LED. So let me get that out of there. And these ones tend to stick in, they don't fall out. So only one came out. And next, we're going to remove the sticker on the bottom. And you can use a utility knife or an X-Acto blade. Find the upper left corner, or any other convenient corner, and kind of work that blade underneath that sticker until you can finally pull up a little bit of an edge there. And then you can use your fingers or tweezers to take that sticker and peel it off and put this somewhere clean and safe. For these 4 screws, we're going to use the 00 Phillips head driver. At this point, you should check to make sure that you have no SD cards in the camera. So yeah, I have one in here. And make sure the battery's not in there. So take out your battery. Okay. The last two screws are hidden underneath this cover. I'm using a 1.5 millimeter hex driver to remove this little fan shroud thing. Okay, so to remove this, all you do is you push up and then it kind of clears and then you can remove it like that. Okay, let's get into these last two screws. And once again, it's your T6 Torx driver. All right. And tilt the camera this way as you're doing it, so that in case one of the screws falls out, it won't fall into the inner body of the camera and get lost and bounce around the electronics. And see if any of them come out. Okay, this one did, that's good. There's another. Okay, so I got both of those out. Now that we've got all the screws removed, it's time to work open the clamshell. So just pinch it on either side like this and kind of slowly work it your way open. And you cannot just rip it open because it's connected to something on the inside, and I'll show you. Okay, so get it to where there's about, you have more leeway on the bottom, by the way. You can open up the bottom to almost a full centimeter, but on the top, do not separate it more than 6 millimeters, okay? At the top of the camera, there's the LCD connector. Use your propeller tool or any other non-conductive stiff plastic and get under there and press up on the upper part, okay? Not the lower part. Try to be as gentle as possible with the half of the connector that's connected to the rigid PCB. That's what you really want to protect. But this top one, that's where you can push up on and separate it. All right, now's the fun part. With that safely disconnected, we can just put the two halves apart and we're good. And let's eat our broccoli first. Okay, let's do the LCD screen first, and then we can do the PCB and the lens assembly second. So put your camera aside in a very safe place. Now we're going to get to work on removing this LCD screen. First, let's remove all of these flex ribbon cables. So use your fingernail to pry up each of these latches and then just pull it out like that. Just use friction with your finger. And once again, fingernail, and then use needle nose pliers to take the tabs on either side of this assembly and pull it outward. And then fingernails for this one. Once again, you pull up on it and then use your tweezers on either side of those tabs to remove that. Okay, next use the 00 Phillips driver in order to remove all of these little black screws. And I'm going to put them in my red poach steak holder. Okay, and you can just take these stiffeners and there's a little bit of a glue adhesive here, so gently pinch on the left side, apply pressure on the stainless steel back cover and peel upward and you'll get it off. And you can set these aside. We will be using these later. Okay, and then these rubber buttons, you can just lift those out. Make sure to keep these. These are really important. Same with the buttons. These things here. All right, let's remove the remaining black screws that are securing the LCD. Okay, so let's see, that's underneath, yeah. Okay, this stainless steel case thing. Oh, is there a hidden screw? Yeah, there's a hidden screw underneath this flap. We got to do that last screw there. Come on. And whipping out the tweezers. Okay. Now, we got the LCD backing off. Let's lift it out and just be careful of this little guy. We cannot damage that. This is crucial for the LCD. Okay, and this we don't need anymore. You don't even have to peel this off. You can just leave it attached, because if you're using my kit, I have my own monitor extension. Okay, so the adhesive came off of this a little bit. We can just gently push that back down because we're going to want to keep that attached. Now the reason why I said this was the broccoli was this is the most difficult part. It's the highest chance of you breaking your Blackmagic. What I'm going to do is I use a heat gun all the way around slowly, and I'm going to touch to do a temperature test until it's not quite hot but not quite warm. It's like very, very warm. That's how hot it should be. And then it will be ready, and then I'm going to use this flexible knife in order to remove the adhesive that's underneath. Okay, just feeling the edges. They're not quite there, they're only just warm. And be sure to apply the heat gun only to the plastic surrounding the LCD, not to the LCD itself. Okay, I think we're there. Yeah, not quite hot, not quite warm. Now take your knife, extend it to the fullest, and don't apply any downward pressure to the LCD at all. You just want to cut the adhesive and be very gentle. Any kind of concentration and force could crack the screen. And don't worry about going all the way through the first time around. Just small little cuts, okay? And be sure to get into those corners. I forgot to tighten this damn thing. Okay, you can see it's starting to come out. Do not be tempted to push it out, okay? Because if you push it out, you're going to apply a bending to the LCD, and that can crack it. So only let the knife take out the screen. Okay. There we go. Ta-da! These right here are all the parts you're going to need for the naked Blackmagic monitor. So keep these safe. Next, let's tackle the rest of the camera. Keep the lens cover on so you're not scuffing up the mount or the glass on the inside. Okay, first let's remove all of these ribbon cables. I'm just going to go around with my fingernails and pry up each one of these latches and then carefully pull out every single ribbon cable. This one you got to be careful with because it's valuable. It's the Wi-Fi, no, the Bluetooth. So make sure you're gentle on that one. Alright, so for this connector, it's a bit more tricky. Make sure you got fine tip tweezers and kind of get underneath it and see if you can pry it up from one side and then do it on the other side. Just like that. And then you can bend it outway. Bend it away. Outway. Bend it outway. Okay, last is the sensor ribbon cable. For this you need the number 0, the That sounds wrong, number 0. I'm going to start putting these PCB screws in my green poached egg. Okay, remove that little clippy clip, and let's tackle all of the rest of these number 0 Phillips screws. Oops. You know what I forgot to do is remove the 3 screws on this little side cover thing. This uses a T6 Torx, and there's 3 screws here, so let's remove that. Okay, bye-bye. Let's tackle this main sensor ribbon cable last. Take 2 fingernails and apply even pressure to both sides and just pry it upward. There we go. Magical. So everything is now loosey-goosey. There's some thermal paste on the CPU on the other side that's causing it to stick. But that's okay. You can just kind of twist it a little bit and then be mindful of the ribbon cables, not making sure that you're not tearing them. And kind of find purchase on the sides. Maybe even go at it from the top. There we go, got it. Okay, so we're not done with the PCB. Let's remove this speaker. Okay, holding this speaker on are 2 00 Phillips screws. Be very careful not to slip your screwdriver. Okay, there's one. Alright, so this guy, you definitely want to keep this. This is the main computer of the camera right here. Let's get on with the rest of the chassis now. Okay, so there are some screws on the bottom that we need to remove. So let's do that. It's a T6 Torx. Alright, and this just falls out. Next are some more T6 Torx screws, and I believe there's 4 of them in each corner of this chassis. And in addition, there's a hidden screw underneath here. It's a 00 Phillips. So let's get in here. This is the easiest one. I always start with the easiest and then work my way up to the more difficult. Okay, next easiest. You know what we forgot to do is unplug the fan connector. So just take that and yank it. And then we got another one of these flat cable things. This is like the power supply for the camera. It's okay if you botch this if you're using my kit. There we go. Alright, the third hardest screw. This one's kind of hidden from you, it's in the shadows. But you can get at it at an angle a little bit. And screw it mostly away, or mostly all the way. And then it's not going to quite come out, so that's when you use your tweezers to come at it from some angle, grab hold of it, and extract it. And we can't forget about the 00 Phillips screw here. Okay, the easiest way to remove the chassis, make sure these 2 plugs are disconnected. First, make sure you situate all the ribbon cables so they're not going to tear or get pinched. And use this point right here and press it up like that. Okay, and then you want to pull it upward, and then watch that ribbon cable right there. Okay, so now the chassis is free. We won't be using this for anything. This is where most of the weight of the camera comes from. Down inside here is the Bluetooth module, and use 00 Phillips to remove those two screws. Okay, and set this aside. Now I'm going to show you a trick that I've started doing is I reinsert the screws that I take out when I know I'll be using that component. So put those screws back in because we're not going to need them for the naked cage, for my naked cage. Put them back in, that way you know where the screws go and they're in safekeeping. Next, let's use the number 0 Phillips. We're going to remove that screw, and that screw. Be sure to keep these screws. These will be used for the naked cage. Okay, with these three screws out, we can remove the fan heatsink, and the way you remove it is you push down on it. Well, you gotta separate it from the sensor plate first, this green thing. So pull up on it, and then you just released the thermal paste. Then bring it up as high as you can, then push it that way, and allow those little metal tabs to clear the body shroud. And we don't need this anymore. Alright, this ribbon cable is pretty important. It's the communication between the lens and the camera. So be gentle on this one. Take a fingernail or something, pry that upward, and then gently use tweezers to pull that out. Also at this point you can remove this thermal pad. We don't need it for our uses because the sensor doesn't heat up too much. Unlike a red camera or something, this one is very cool. Even the ambient conductive air or air convection will cool the sensor sufficiently. So these three screws, these were holding this sensor plate in place. So we can actually remove the sensor plate. Now it's tempting to look at the sensor, but I would just take it and place it face down somewhere on a clean surface on your table. These things right here are shims, and you're gonna need them. Okay, at this point we gotta just be very careful not to get any fingerprints or excessive dust on the UV filter on the inside here. It's time for the lens mount. Let's remove this lens cap cover, whatever you call it. Oh, I forgot a tool. Sorry, you're gonna also need a 2mm hex driver. And that's for these 4 stainless steel screws. Keep these screws, these are very important. We can lift this ring off now and press down on this button at the same time and keep this, put that somewhere safe, and this ring spring, keep that, put it somewhere safe. Okay, next is there's a little plastic space filler, don't know what it's called, but it's just this little plastic bit. We want to keep that. Okay, take the button, lift it out, keep that. Okay, down in there is a spring. The easiest way to get it out without losing it is cover the front, flip it over, and there it is. Keep that. Alright, now these 5 screws can be a little bit challenging. So that's why it helps to have a screwdriver with a good handle on it. And this is 00 Phillips. So I would first start removing the lower one, which is made out of some kind of reinforced plastic. So let's do this screw. This screw is holding down a small little button, and this button tells the camera if there's a lens installed or not. It has a little micro switch on it. And we want to keep all of these little tiny screws, so be very careful. Also, when using the screwdriver, be careful not to let it slip, because if it slips and hits your UV filter, you're going to have a little ding in it. Okay, these 3 screws, keep them. Now, let's lift out this lens communication thing. I do it by using my thumb and index finger in order to pry or like get a grip on these grooves, and then kind of just gently lift it out without touching the filter in the back. And notice the lens communication ribbon cable comes through that slot. So keep this. And next, these last 2 screws. So this metal ring comes out pretty easily, but just be careful not to touch or scratch the glass on the way out. And obviously we got to keep that too. Alright, next we got to remove this UV filter or IR filter, whatever it is. Take a clean microfiber towel and press from behind and just give it even pressure, work your way around till it pops loose, like that. And then I like to push it up on one side so it's a little bit easier to grab from the other side. There we go, no fingerprints. Okay, take note of all these things. They are going to be what you need to assemble your naked Blackmagic cage.